I skip the introduction so that we can get right into the meat and potato of things.
Okay.
And so thank you again for giving me the privilege of being here. You've done the interview series of Nuggets of Wisdom. And I'm actually happy that you're the first one to be on Nuggets of Wisdom podcast.
Wonderful.
And so instead of doing your introduction, I'm going to let you do it. And so who is Nathan and what does he do?
Sure. Well, thank you. The honor is all mine, Francois. I'm a huge fan. I think that the Nuggets of Wisdom you're referring to has to be nearly 8 years ago, 7 years ago, just ballparking it. My name is Nathan Regan. I am the owner of Burnell's Fine Jewelry and Design. I am a third-generation jeweler from Kansas. My grandfather opened up Regan Jewelers in 1934, which, if you look at the timeline, when he went to Garden City, it was the middle of the Dust Bowl, and he opened up a jewelry store mid-Great Depression era. So I am the grandson of a very gritty man whose name was Aloysius, and he and his longtime wife, Pearl, had 11 children. And of those 11 children, my father and his brother continued to run Regan Jewelers up until I was a child, and I became a bench jeweler, a goldsmith, at the age of 16 in 1998.
Wow.
So we are going on 20 plus years of being a bench jeweler and creating beautiful jewelry for all of Kansas now for the third generation of the Regan family.
So first of all, you said you were 18? No, 16?
I was 16.
98?
Yeah, we're trying to do math in front.
No. I'm sorry.
I turned 42 this year. That's what he's getting at. Yeah.
You do not know that.
Thank you.
I thought you were 35.
Dual income, no children. I'm a dink.
And so let me go back a little bit. Who was Nathan in college?
Nathan didn't go to college. Nathan went to a technical institute, right? So I was at the bench for probably 5 years and decided that I wanted to increase my knowledge by going to a 2-year institute in Paris for goldsmithing. So I spent 4 semesters in a formal, what you would call a college experience in the Texas Institute of Jewelry Technology, not Paris, France, but Paris, Texas.
I was about to say,
I get the world with that one.
I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, I love that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, but personality-wise,
Sure.
were you a shy person? Were you
Never.
Were you popular? Were you math, physics? Were you more into text, literature?
Okay. Yeah. I always gravitated towards mathematics. I was certainly always naturally good at math. Any typical liberal arts kind of always annoyed me for some reason. I don't know why. I just never really excelled in English literature and things of that nature. Although I really do enjoy reading nowadays much, much more about, psychology and any philosophy book. I'm all in nowadays. But growing up, I married my high school sweetheart, and she would be the first to tell you that I was popular, that I was the homecoming king at the Superior Garden City High School. And so, it kind of stems from way back when that I was never really a shy type. I was always very extroverted and always kind of gravitated towards not doing the normal system of things, which is what led me to not go to a normal university.
Okay. Can you give us the critical experience that shaped your teenage years?
Teenage years, yes. Getting deep off the bat, and I don't want to get too deep. I'm happy to, Francois. I have an older sister who was diagnosed with schizophrenia. And she was diagnosed at 19 and I was 16 at the time, ironically. So right about the time I hit the bench. So, mental health has always been a big subject that I'm passionate about and trying to keep people aligned with, because I think that far too often we overlook mental health. We joke about it. We don't take it seriously. And then all of a sudden something like this happens where, my sister Bridget, she's been schizophrenic now since she was 19, and maybe before you're born with the gene, but she was diagnosed in 19 and it shook my world. Yeah.
So fast forward, you get done with the goldsmithing school.
Yep.
Takes
I graduated from Paris.
Okay. We're great. And so did you get a jewelry store, right? I mean, did you buy Burnell's right away?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. So my road from Paris was a tumultuous road as well. I actually had my older sister, Jessica. She was working in Denver at the time, and I wanted to live in Colorado. So I went to Denver in Aurora, Colorado, and got a job at a jewelry store, just a small mom and pop shop called Petrel's. At no point did I want to go back to my family business. And I think this is an encouraging and a strong point, which a lot of people don't understand and realize, that you might be doing yourself a disservice by staying in your family business and never leaving those four walls, and understanding the amount of growth that is out there beyond the spectrum of what your parents went through and your grandparents went through, by moving out and expanding your horizons. And in all full disclosure, I 100% thought I would live in Garden City right now and own Regan Jewelers. It's still open to this day. They're actually going to retire real soon, but they're still open. It's 1934, so they're going on 89 years this year. And I thought for sure I'd end up in Garden City, Kansas. But as fate has it, I ended up moving away shortly after Denver back to Garden City, Kansas, because we had a family tragedy. And the family tragedy led me back into the hands of my one true love, my high school sweetheart, Christy, who I ended up chasing because she got a job here at WSU. So my wife got a job at WSU, and I chased her, and we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment for a year and a half here up on North Woodlawn. So kind of fate led me to Wichita. I moved here before I got a job. And then I interviewed at several spots, but Jerry Burnell, the owner of Burnell's at the time, was the first person I called to ask for a job, and he rejected.
Okay, I was expecting that.
He did. He was just fully staffed, and I get it. I think at the time he had 4 goldsmiths, and he himself not included in that. And he's a smith himself. So I just think at the time it was an incredible happenstance that 2 out of his 4 goldsmiths, shortly within like 3 months of me making that phone call, quit and moved on to different cities. So he called me back, a little bit of panic in his voice, saying, "Do you indeed still want a job?" And I was thrilled, and I played a little hard, but I didn't have to. I'm just as I should. But I was very excited to step into the caliber of that position. At the time, it was Burnell's Creative Gold, and now it's under my ownership. It's Burnell's Fine Jewelry and Design.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
This is very inspiring. So we had 2 nuggets of wisdom in that story right there.
Sure.
I could relate to one, not working in the family business. In my story, my father is a banker, and he wanted me to be in the financial industry so badly because that's where his network was, that's where he has a good influence, and it was just easier that way. And I decided otherwise. One, because he was great at what he was doing. It could be a little coward of me to be like, I don't want to be in his shadow for the rest of my life, so I'm going to be my own way. But that decision allowed me to be able to do this.
Yeah, me that.
Like you.
Yeah.
And I don't regret it, basically.
I would should you.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Ironically, Francois, my father, I don't think he wanted me in the industry. I really don't. I think that he was a very wise man and truly like a living saint. The guy just never did any wrong. He was always always put other people in front of him. He was a very generous man, but he ran the business and he knew what it took to run the business. It is not for the faint of heart. It takes, up until very recently, I was working nearly 80 hours a week, and now I peeled back to 60. So I think he knew that the writing was on the wall, that it was a very uphill battle, and that especially with him probably thinking I'd end up in Garden City, Kansas, that it was a tumultuous economy there, and that there wasn't a lot of affluent people spending money on luxury goods, because I sell jewelry. That's you kind of have to pay the bills first before you are able to buy your loved one a piece of jewelry. So I think he knew, and it's not that he discouraged me, because it was never that. But I think that when I announced to him at 16 that I wasn't going to let the family business just go by the wayside, and that I wanted to pursue it, that he around every corner, he was very, he would shoot the warning shots of the reality of the jewelry industry, which is not what it appears to be on the surface.
My father was, I would say, the same, wise. He would encourage you to do things, but for him, hard work is the key to everything. And he's right. And so it doesn't matter the challenge that is in front of you. It's true. Work hard. Absolutely. You'll be okay. But teenager Francois had other plans.
That's fair. Yeah. I don't want to paint this picture that I wasn't a rabble rouser as a teenager, because I absolutely was. I went to Catholic school growing up.
Me too.
You did? Yeah. And it was very, I was always pulled out of school because I made straight A's, kindergarten through 5th grade, no problem. And they pulled me out of school to be the altar boy all the time. So early on in life, I would get pulled out twice a week, 3 times a week sometimes, because they needed an altar boy for a funeral or a wedding ceremony, and they would just draw on me. They'd pull me out every time because I was okay doing it. I was caught up on all my schoolwork. So probably early on elementary school, before I was put into the public school system, I was very just straight across the line, do what my parents tell me to do. But once middle school hit and high school, I started acting out and was not on the honor roll. So that's less than 3.0. I went from nearly 4.0 to 2.6 or whatever I ended up with really quickly, because I just didn't. I think the problem was I didn't follow rules. I didn't want to follow rules.
That's the dilemma that a lot of teenagers face.
Of course.
And it was the same thing for me. All boys, Catholic school. And yes, right around the time I hit middle school, the end of middle school, high school, I was like, I want to be my own man. I want to make my own decisions. I want to pick my own clothes. Everybody talks about women. What is it about?
Right.
All the hormones start kicking in. I mean, just how your own personality starts to develop and be more louder.
Without a doubt.
Yes. Okay. So let's talk about you getting your first job.
Yeah.
I mean, your job.
Outside of or Burnell's.
Yeah, I was about to say, I said first job, but really it was your job at Burnell's.
Yeah.
To you owning the place.
Okay.
Give us 3 things that really stuck with you and push you in that direction. Sure. Challenges, successes.
3 things. Okay. I think the big one and the number one thing was the work ethic that I saw from other people who weren't my family when I got in that building. By the time I got to Burnell's, it was 2006. And if you do the math, that's 8 years after I sat at the bench. I had already been sitting at the bench as a jeweler for 8 years. And I never really sat at the bench looking back at it until I came to Burnell's, meaning my fellow goldsmiths would sit all day at the bench working on jewelry. And as a goldsmith, you've got an optivisor on, you got a smock, you are actively cutting rings, setting stones, and you're just focused on this one little area. And oftentimes this one little area is, 1 inch by 1 inch little ring. And it is tedious, and it takes a ton of discipline and practice to be able to understand not only what it is that you're looking at, what you're trying to achieve, but what it takes to become that level of master goldsmith that I was surrounded by when I came into Burnell's. So I'd say the number one lesson I learned was watching other people just sit there and practice for 8 hours a day. Prior to that, I would go check my email. I would find a reason to go out on the sales floor, look at pretty things for sale, whatever it was. And again, that's kind of jumping into the realm of getting outside of what your family store was. They just did it differently at Burnell's. Number two was I was the bottom of the totem pole for probably 8 years at Burnell's before anybody else came in the business, meaning anything that needed to get done that was sweep, mop, whatever it was, just any grunt work would fall to me naturally. I was the youngest in the building. I was okay with it. And I was a savage then, truly like, yes, sir, I'll get it done, sir, type of savage. Not mean savage, just going after it. I'm going to get it done. So it was just nonstop yes, man. That's number two. Number three would be, I always had my ear to the ground. I loved listening to Jerry Burnell and back in the day, take phone calls from people that he wasn't expecting. Vendors call on us all the time in the jewelry industry. And most of the time it's inconvenient for us to see a vendor, right? So people sell us jewelry from New York City and they don't set an appointment with me. They just walk in the building or they'll cold call me. And it's a tough life. And I get that. And I think we in Kansas have the benefit in the Midwest, generally, we have a sense of honesty and caring behind most humanity. And Jerry had that very much. So my third was, I would listen to the people in charge and listen to how they handle things and try to understand when it was over, why did he handle it that way? Why didn't he take a different path? Why would I have taken a different path? And oftentimes the answer was, yeah, I would have told that guy to kick rocks immediately. But then it turned out that he got a benefit from being very nice to that guy. So I just listen to your superiors. It's not about thinking that you belong in some management role and you're not there yet. It's about just being gritty and getting through it. So at no point up until 2013 did I hear about Jerry Burnell selling the business. I knew he was getting older. He was probably 70 at the time. But at no point was it on my radar that I was going to buy the store. At no point was it on my radar that I was going to be anything other than a jewelry designer and a goldsmith. Opportunity comes to you. Then that's one of the things in reading some of the questions that you bounced off of me earlier before this, Francois, was, I forget what the question was, but my comment on it that I wrote to myself was, don't ask for a raise. If you feel entitled to a raise in your job, then you should either leave or prove to the person who's in charge that you need a raise. It's not that you shouldn't ever ask for a raise. That's not what I'm saying. I truly am just saying, prove to the person that you are worth your weight in gold, pun intended, that they don't want to get rid of you, right? So it's not about threats. It's about showing who you are and what you're capable of doing without demanding things. Because I think all too often, and I see it now in millennials, that they walk into a building and because they work for you for a year, they're entitled to something.
I was getting there.
You're not entitled to anything.
I was about to get there, but
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, all good. I know that was a blowhardy answer to your question, but there it is.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
But one thing that stayed with me, the savage analogy, the good savage.
Yes.
Good.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm a yes man, yes ma'am, yes sir type of person.
Good.
That's how I grew up. My father is very like, here's what you need to do. You need to get it done. That's all it is. That's how it always worked. And then later on, when I got into bigger friends group, I didn't mind doing the dirty work. And a lot of the time, entrepreneurship is about doing the little things, yes it is, that nobody else wants to do. Cleaning, mopping.
I still love doing it. It's not about me actually physically loving taking out garbage. I love hiring a new person, me telling that person that I want the garbage taking out, and then seeing their look in their eyes when they see me take the garbage out because they didn't.
I enjoy that too.
That's your job.
I enjoy
And
that.
I didn't say anything to you, but I know that you saw me take out that garbage. And that's your job.
This is such a good clip. We are definitely clipping this. It's going on social media. Yes. The youth today needs to understand that. I tell Allison all the time, to me, it's like therapy. It keeps me grounded. Yes, I can afford to pay somebody to do it for me, but what example am I teaching Princeton, right? Because if tomorrow I'm like, Princeton, you got to clean that, but Johnny's here, or I don't know.
Hey, make your bed. Your bed's not made, Dad.
Right.
Yeah, come on. I mean, what ground do you stand on? If your bed's not made, you're telling your son to make your bed.
Yep.
You know,
I'm saying that. And so let's jump and talk a little bit about innovation.
Okay.
How do you react to the innovation and trends in your industry?
I love it all. I mean, even if it's experimental type of stuff, I embrace it. We were blessed to be our age, truly, and I know you're younger than I. But I grew up with the Nintendo Entertainment System. I grew up playing Centipede on an Atari. So I think it was just ingrained in me to appreciate computers, appreciate the invention of our forefathers, and embrace it and move forward. And admittedly, my industry is always behind the ball when it comes to all things innovation. We laser welders were out for a long time, and a laser welder is just a simple laser tacking system that changed my life in about the year 2000, ironically, where I used to have to try to get the head on top of a ring that's real wobbly to be centered, to be straight, and solder it all while holding like 4 sets of tweezers. Now I could walk into a laser and through a microscope, snap it into place, laser it on, look at it, make subtle adjustments, re-laser it, and then I take it to the torch with no tweezers and solder it. So it's one tiny example, but the laser industry was out for a decade and a half nearly with something like that took my industry 10 years to adapt. And that was in the late 90s, early 2000s. Now you fast forward, we just started using 3D printers, and 3D printers have been out for quite some time, but the jewelry industry was lagging behind in the quality of a 3D print. So it used to print real heavy texture style. We print it fast and it'd be real heavy. And then by the time I cast it into gold, I'd have to file it all down, basically reshape it by hand.
Right.
Well, nowadays, thank goodness, the jewelry industry kind of stepped up, and the printing, 3D printing technology has increased so much that it takes a lot longer to print the items we need. But when I cast it into gold, you can almost just polish it and it's ready to go. So yeah, I'm very excited about innovation in my field. Lab-grown diamonds are a big thing now.
I heard.
So you basically take the natural crystal of a rough diamond that comes out of the ground and wherever around the world that Mother Earth made, and they sliver a tiny little sheet off of it, smaller than the size of human hair, and they throw it into a kiln that is gaseous and fill it up with pressure and heat, and you watch it grow almost like those charcoal snakes at the 4th of July. They just put a little heat and watch it grow, and it takes weeks to grow. There's going to be videos. It's not instantaneous.
Okay,
no.
okay.
And then you have a natural crystal, a lab-grown crystal that you then cut down into a diamond. And so that's another just monumental shift in my industry, which is lab-grown diamonds, to me, is going to be the biggest shift in my career and probably my lifetime in the jewelry industry.